I'm sure at some point in your lifetime, you might have came across something called music.
What's the greatest album of all time?
Probably Certified Lover Boy.
There is a lot of it. And honestly, it's a real pain trying to just sit down and listen to everything that's ever been released and is planning to be released. But I kind of took it upon myself to ungatekeep some albums, if you will, and just kind of push it out to the public. Just for the record, I'm not going to break down each second of a song. I'm not Anthony Fantano. I don't really have the analytical mindset to be able to give you why each song is a 10 out of 10 or why it's life-changing or whatever. I personally just really like these albums and wish I can talk to more people about these bands. Starting off the list, we have this soul-funk, Spanish-influenced indie band, Los Retros, and their first official album, Looking Back. Without being too biased, this album is honestly amazing. Throughout the album, you'll be able to pick up on the Spanish rock kind of influence in their sound. If you either grew up Hispanic or out of your own free time listen to Spanish rock, at least from like 80s, 90s. And they honestly do a really great job being able to mix both this sound and the new kind of sound that they're trying to make with it, including all of the synths throughout the songs. Throughout the album, you'll be able to pick up on this nostalgic feeling that this album does give out, and it just kind of makes you reminisce on simpler times, either being your childhood, your time in school, or just time with your family or loved ones. And honestly, to me, that's the main charm to this album. When I found the band, it was around 2019, but I never really fully got into it around 2020, COVID season. And honestly, anytime I listen to the album, it does just kind of bring me back to COVID season. While many other people in the country were dealing with these serious circumstances, my main concern throughout that whole situation was just trying to make sure I max out all my weapons and was able to get all the weapon skins. Yeah, no, honestly, the amount of hours I spent on that game is crazy. I remember waking up, and if it was a school day, I would just have my Chromebook in the background while I load up the shipment, where I would just go ham and just spend hours maxing out these weapons and then trying to get gold and then Damascus. And then after everyone was getting on, they added Obsidian, and that's where most of my quarantine time was spent. If this at all has interested you in checking out the album, I'd recommend listening to Amtrak, Deep Seated, and It's Gotta Be You. And if at all you seem interested after checking out the record and liking it, I'd also recommend Someone to Spend Time With and Friends. And if you really want some more music from them, I'd also recommend listening to their 2017 Retrospect album. It's only on YouTube for some reason, but I did see on an interview that they were talking about how at first the name for the band was supposed to be Retrospect or Retrospective or something like that. They said that due to copyright, they wouldn't be able to publish their music without getting into legal trouble. So if you're interested, check out their 2017 album. It's honestly really good, and honestly it does kind of give off the same vibes as Looking Back. I almost forgot. Another song I recommend is Loop of Love, which is also on YouTube, and I think it's the same issue. I think it's just something to do with copyright or with the sample used in the song. It's a really cute song. And if by the smallest chance Los Retros is watching this video, like the very, very slim chance that they are, please put out more music. I'm literally dying to listen to more music by you guys. Have you ever wondered what an album by The Strokes, Nirvana, and Radiohead would sound like, with the added touch of it being Japanese? I know it's kind of bold comparing all these great artists into this one small indie Japanese band, but honestly, if I didn't know English, or I mean, I don't know Japanese, but if I didn't know English and my main language wasn't Japanese and a handful of these albums were played to me, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Betcover's fourth studio album, Jiken, is honestly, again, pretty amazing. From beginning to end, it honestly does give off this early Strokes, early Radiohead kind of vibe with Nirvana's grungy kind of attitude to it. While it's not super grungy, you can honestly pinpoint some inspiration. And honestly, this is one of the things that really appeals to me, as I feel like most rock groups that are coming from Japan do end up sounding the same. And when I mean the same, I'm mainly talking about those groups that end up trying to sound like they're in an anime intro or outro. And I get that when a certain song is popularized by an anime, most groups are going to end up trying to sound the same. But with everyone trying to sound the same, they just end up sounding sort of bland and just not really good. And while I'm making the album sound kind of rash and super clashy, not all of it is like that. But there are some songs in this album that are a bit more grungy, Strokes like. The other half is kind of this melancholy, kind of slow style that I sometimes prefer from rock songs, but with an added twist. But let me explain the twist. I'd say at least one or two of these melancholy songs start off pretty slow and then go from 0 to a million and just start getting really abrupt. But again, to me, that's kind of what I prefer in terms of sound. If for some reason I'm not really selling this album to you, I'd at least give Piano a chance, because Piano alone is honestly a masterpiece. And if you don't really feel like checking out the band or their other discographies, I'd at least recommend listening to Piano. But if you do decide to check out the album, I'd also recommend Kitsune and Toi Toi Shinseki. But if you are considering listening to the slower songs, I'd recommend Kaiten Tenshi and Popo. Now, this next album, I don't think really that many people know about this band, but in case you're unfamiliar with them, they're called, let me see here, The Beatles? Yeah, no, I'll be honest, that was kind of cringe. But I'll be honest, the whole reason I wanted to make this video was solely because I wanted to put more people onto this album. Because I'll be honest, I feel like a lot of people disregard this album just because it came after Sgt. Pepper's. And everyone who's a Beatles fan or anyone who's a music fan claims Sgt. Pepper's as the greatest album of all time. Newsflash, it's not. I'm not gonna fully delve into this topic, but I personally feel like Sgt. Pepper's is heavily overrated, and Magical Mystery Tour should be getting the praise that Sgt. Pepper does. The album has Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, Blue Jay Way, All You Need Is Love, Your Mother Should Know. Like, all these songs are bangers. And yeah, I get that these songs are singles and are just compiled into this album, but I mean, technically it's part of this album, so it's this album's release. And I don't see why people just don't appreciate this album for what it is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling Sgt. Pepper's a terrible album. It's okay in terms of Beatles rankings, which, by the way, it comes in like 6th place or something for me. But I feel like there isn't that many notable songs off of Sgt. Pepper's in terms of comparing it to Magical Mystery Tour. Don't get me wrong, the intro and outro are amazing. I feel like those are if it wasn't for Lucy in the Sky, I feel like that would be the highlight of the entire album. But besides the intro and outro and Lucy in the Sky, there isn't that many songs that really, at least for me, piqued my interest. But yeah, this one's gonna be real short because I feel like everyone knows the Beatles, everyone knows Sgt. Pepper's, and everyone should know Magical Mystery Tour. So I'm not gonna fully delve into it. I'm pretty sure there are other bigger and more popular people who have broken down this album or any other Beatles song. I just wanted to add my 2 cents in and kind of push up the Magical Mystery Tour hype and hopefully bring down the Sgt. Pepper's monarchy. Do you like a bit of shoegaze? Do you like a bit of post-rock? Then maybe this album will tickle your funny. I'll be honest, I'm still pretty new to this whole genre or subgenre of rock, but this album is honestly like every album I'm gonna mention I'm just gonna say it's amazing, and so this is no exception. This is, I think, the first shoegaze album I actually really enjoyed. I know that My Bloody Valentine is like the shoegaze kind of icon, but I'll be honest, I didn't really like it. I think I only really liked one song from that entire album. And I don't know, maybe I'll just give it another listen, but for now, I'm not really too big into it. Yeah, no, this album really does give off early 2000s kind of rock, especially Japanese rock. And I think that's why I really, really like this. It sounds like a product from the early 2000s, which isn't at all bad. I mean, my favorite album from The Strokes is literally from 2001, and I do feel like it's the same kind of vibe. I'll be honest, one of the main reasons I did bring up this album was because I'm gonna go see them live in about a week or two. And don't get me wrong, I understand that not everyone's gonna be into the same music that I am, especially when it comes to Japanese rock. But every time that I tried mentioning this album or this artist to anyone, any normie basically, they just basically give me the same face, like, what? So I know I'm not gonna give much of an impact in terms of bringing this to the public. I literally have 2 subscribers, but I feel like if more people talk about it, then I know it'll be a snowball effect, and eventually maybe they'll get bigger and hopefully they get more recognition. The main songs I recommend is their first, second, and She Is Inside, He Is Outside song. I would have tried reading out the title of the songs, but I'm not at all fluent in any language. I know you could probably tell by the way that I sound, but I'm not very, very fluent in English, nor Spanish, nor Japanese at all. So I'm not even gonna give it a try. And if you want more of a calming sound, more of a soothing sound, I'd recommend listening to Dramatic. It's from their latest album, and it's really, really good. And for the last entry, I picked a kind of throwback for me. It's Fishman's Cuckoo Camp. And once again, I'm going to say this for the last time. It's amazing. There's heavy elements of reggae and sort of soft rock in this album. But I think at this point in the band's career, they were experimenting with a bit more psychedelic sounds, which you can definitely hear on the second half of this album. And I'm a man of, taste. I listen to Pink Floyd. And so when I listened to this album in particular, I was like, hold up, I didn't know the Japanese were like this. I'm not really comparing both albums, but they do give off the same energy in terms of the psychedelic kind of pop, psychedelic rock that they implement in this album. It's honestly a shame that this band isn't as recognizable as Tatsuro Yamashita or Lamp or Henri or Eve or any other iconic Japanese artist, because I feel like this band did have the elements of stardom, but it just never got picked up or was lost in translation. This band definitely has that many other iconic Japanese artists has, and I feel like they should be recognized as much as any other one. If you're a fan of Japanese music, whether it be rock, pop, whatever, city pop, I feel like you owe it to yourself to really try to give this band a listen, because once you do, I feel like you'll understand how underrated this band really is. I would honestly recommend listening to every single song on this album, but if I did have to pick a certain song, I'd recommend Baby Blue, Slow Days, Night Cruisin', or Sunny Blue. But yeah, that basically sums up my list of albums that I feel like more people should consider listening to that are heavily underrated. And trust me, I have way more albums in my playlist that I feel like I could make a whole series on. Depending on how this video goes, I'll consider making another one and kind of putting more albums out on the spotlight. But for now, please like, subscribe, and give me your thoughts on these albums. Have you listened to them before? Is this your first time listening to them? And if this is your first time listening to them, do you like them? Do you not? If you don't, I'll fight you in the comment section, but just leave your thoughts, or I personally will respond to each and every one of them. Thank you.